Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. This week we've left Rome and we've gone back in time again. I know the hard thing is about this curriculum, and she follows this book. And
right,
this
which is a great book.
This is a great book, but this book may not be in chronological order. And today is a good example of that. So we are talking about the Kush civilizations and the Axum civilization. So where is this? This is kind of Sudan, Southern Nile, Upper Nile, as I think properly called, Southern Nile area, and then kind of the Ethiopia area with the Axum civilization. And this is kind of around the same time as the Egyptians. So if you imagine, we've gone all the way forward in time, and then we jump back to do the Indus Valley, and then we went forward again with the Rome, and now we've jumped back in time.
Do you think it makes sense to do it at this time, or would you move it if we did it again?
I would move it, but this is maybe the caveat is when you're doing the Egyptian civilization and you've done 5 or 6 weeks of it, I don't know if you want to do one more week of essentially what amounts to is an extension of the Egyptian civilization, because the Kushite kingdom actually ended up taking over, I think, most of Egypt and became the pharaohs of Egypt. So it was almost like an extension of it, but it does make sense that it would be wrapped in. So if you're thinking about planning this curriculum and you want to go ahead and pull this in and do this week right at the end of your Egypt study, it would fit perfectly. So
it's a lot of time at the Nile. How would it fit in with Greece? And could you do maybe do Greece for a bit and then come back to this before you did all of Rome?
If you did this before Greece, but the problem with Greece is, and if we're all going back in the Wayback Machine, you do the Minoan civilization, the Mycenaean civilization, and then you get into Greece.
Right, it's also a long.
So there's a lead up into Greece of a couple of weeks. So I would actually just say, you either leave it till now and feel kind of awkward that you've got to jump back in time, or just put it at the end of your Egyptian civilization and then just carry it forward.
I think that the good news is, if you do want to add it on to the end of Egypt, it was a really light week worth of work. The chapter book that we read was light. The history quest was light. There wasn't a whole lot here. In fact, it didn't take us a full week to get through it. So you could kind of, tack that on, watch some great videos and things, but maybe it wouldn't be a whole nother full week.
And the bulk of the reading is here in the history quest, and then we went ahead and added, because on brand with us is the eyewitness books. This is going to talk about African civilization as a whole, but specifically early on page 10 there, they do talk about the great civilizations of Egypt, and they do talk about the Kush and the Axum civilizations here as well. So there's some activity, there's some interesting concepts here and things to look at. So it was just something I wanted to pull in because you're right, it was extremely light this week, and I'm like, I feel like I want to drag more in here. Some of these weeks, sometimes you feel like, okay, we're going to have to do a lot of videos because there's just not a lot of reading.
Even this book, that's the only, there's only a small section on this.
And even in some of our other books, the history year by year or When on Earth, they had no coverage of this civilization. Yeah. I don't want to say it's a quote unquote minor civilization, ancient civilization, but it is treated that way. Especially when you're contrasting it against all the other big ones. It was kind of a small, short week. And just like when they did the Nazca, early on we went to South America and a little bit of the North America with the Mesoamerica civilizations. Those were a little thin, and this is just another thin week. I don't think it's any criticism of the curriculum. I think it's just the availability of materials. Yeah. So if you want to tack this on to the end of Egypt, I would really recommend that's probably your best play, because it feels a little disjointed when you finish Rome. You're heading back. It's a little strange.
Thankfully, we were able to find some great videos to go with it, which we'll go over, which really, I think, helped to round out this week, because you're right, there isn't a lot of written material for us.
But fortunately, with this week, we had a leftover that we didn't talk about last week. So people are sitting there going, hey, I'm following this curriculum at home, Matt, and you left something off. And you're right, we left off Nims Island from Rome last week because we were busy and I just didn't have time to get to it. And I used this week as a week to catch up and read Nims Island.
Right, you read the whole book in 1 week.
It did. Actually, wild to say, I read it in 2 sittings with my daughter. So half of the book. It's a fast-paced book. It's about 120 pages. Very quick read. Has that Roald Dahl feel to it, where it's kind of like a fun, light story that you're going to read. and it has these really great pictures. Whoever the artist was, it reminds me a lot of those kind of old Roald Dahl books where they have those kind of like pen stick figure.
Like Explode the Code.
Yeah, it's got a little Explode the Code, but a little bit better Explode the Code drawings. But yeah, you're right. It does have that feel. But this is a great book. This is kind of like if I call it, like the way they picture it here on the front, it's Indiana Jones on an island with a young lost a 10-year-old who's not there.
It's a really great adventure story. I think there's lots of great lessons to learn. There's a terrific movie on this that
stars Gerard Butler.
Yes.
And with his Scottish accent.
Wow.
With his Scottish accent and Jodie Foster.
Right. So really great movie recommendation.
If you're looking for a dinner and a movie, book and a movie recommendation.
I mean, obviously this doesn't have anything to do with the Kush. It's just a great book. And
this was meant to be the book at the end of the last week's Rome study. We were going to be reading this, and I think it kind of...
I thought it was a 2-weeker.
It was a 2-weeker. It was supposed to be finished this week, but we forgot to introduce it last week because we didn't actually start it. But we read it all of this week. So
you could really take it in 1 week and move it wherever you want to. Mm-hmm. But it really was a fun one.
This was a book I felt like some books take months to read. Some books take days to read. This was a book that took days, just a couple days to read. It's not that it wasn't like, it's a full chapter book, but it was brisk. It was fun. For my own liking, there wasn't as much dialogue, but what lacked in the dialogue, because it's basically a story about a young girl whose father and she and her father live on an island alone due to a tragedy with their mother, that they live alone on this island. His father does research, and he periodically goes out in a sailboat to do some work, and she stays back on the island. But she's safe. She has babysitters, Selkie, her sea lion, Fred, her reptile, her lizard, and then periodically I think Cheney or something comes in, and that's a sea turtle. And so she has these friends on the island that a lot of humor, really fun. And what I thought was a nice twist was that she began a correspondence with an author who wrote the adventure books that she loves to read on the island. That her and her father have been having this correspondence, and because her father's away, she started emailing with the author, and that created the whole impetus of being rescued and all this type of stuff. Her father was stuck out at sea, and she's alone on the island, and she's having to take care of everything. It was just, it was really fun. And I think the line here is meeting him a modern day Robinson Crusoe, and that's probably the best way to put it. It's just a fun, light read. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the kids really loved it. They were telling me about it every day when I came home for those 2 days. They were like, they were all in it. We were 100% Nim's Island for a couple of days there.
Two big readings. That's all it took it. So we did a little bit of art. So part of the Axum civilization, they did this really cool obelisks, and I'll go ahead and put the.
We always default to the coloring pages when we're busy, y'all.
We always go to the art. What was really cool about this...
Next time we'll build something out of clay or something better.
It had a Moana thing, where she's stacking the stones. And one day you will put your stone on the top. And every time they had a new king, they put a new level on it. Yeah, so it was like a skyrise obelisk through time.
That's really neat.
Yeah, so it was kind of a cool thing. So we did that, and we watched a little video on that. With the Kush, we went ahead and, Kush and Aksum civilizations, we did a lot more media.
Yeah, we watched a really great, we watched a TED Ed video.
I love the TED Ed videos. We recommend them a lot.
Terrific. We'll link it in the show notes, because I learned a ton that I didn't know, and we watched a couple of great National Geographic videos.
Yes, there's a Nat Geo and 1 hour documentary on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, go to the Nat Geo National Geographic section. We'll link it in the show notes below. But it's all about these pyramids that were built by the Kushite kingdom. And one of them is kind of flooded, and they were diving into it. I think we recommended it way back in the Egypt one, but we watched it because we thought it was an Egyptian thing, but it actually turned out to be a Kush thing, but we liked it anyway, so we recommended it. But we'll bring that back and recommend that you watch that during this week, because it really fits, because it talks all about the Kush kings and really unbelievable video of these pyramids. They're not the giant pyramids that we know. They're kind of these smaller 2-story pyramids that just dot the landscape. There's more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt. I think some weird thing.
Yeah, we had no idea. So if you're up for a longer video, that's a great one. If you want something shorter, the TED Ed video is like, I think, sub 10 minutes. Yeah. So you can kind of pick and choose. And I love the TED Ed video for all of the graphics. Yeah, the animations and stuff that they did was really engaging to our daughters. Yep. So we had a couple of great, and I think there might have been a couple more. So we'll link all the videos down in the show notes so that you guys can check them out too.
Shorter week. Recommend taking this week and then putting it at the end of Egypt.
Yeah. Unless you're just done being in the desert and you just want to make a change.
It's up to you. You're homeschoolers. You get to make the choices for yourself. That's the beauty of it.
Or just leave, you know what you can just do? Just do Egypt and then just leave a spot on the timeline. Just like leave a blank and then move on. And then later when you come back, just have this neat little spot that you can just add to instead of having to like cram it in like we had to because we had used all of our available timeline space.
Yep. So next week, we're on to China.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
We're heading east, way east. And hopefully we'll get to China and we're going to have a good time again. Mm-hmm.